Today's Inspiration Thursday. I'm here with Rocio Perez, a true disruptor. Her story from ashes to influence. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another episode, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Wow, do I have a show for you today. You know, a lot of time I don't, well, okay, I'm going to open this up and be as calm as I can. But when I think about the fact that we are, shots are in the arm, the freeways are full again. People are heading back to different workplaces. But I wonder about the mindset of the small business owner who is the leader. I wonder about the manager in corporate America who is the leader. I wonder about the employee who is going back and has certain needs. We all have particular needs from those that we look up to, those that we hold in high regard. Can they live up to our new norm? So today's conversation is with an inclusion and diversity thought leader, someone I call a disruptor. And when you hear her story, it will become clear why I call her a disruptor. She's a trainer, international author, and speaker. I'm here with Rocio Perez. Rocio, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here with you now. You are a force of nature, and I love what you're doing to touch, move, and inspire people.
Well, that's what you do. And I mean, your book, Unstoppable, 7 Steps to Becoming a More Intentional Leader. And there it is. I love that cover and the insert, the insight, that content. Pure meat. Because, Rocio, you say that leaders have to continue to grow, develop themselves. So when I read through and do research on you, and I spoke with you, I thought, this is why she can write such a powerful book, why she can be the CEO of Inventiva.
Yeah.
That tell everyone your story. And I know you can't tell it all, but you are a powerful, powerful speaker. So I know how to break this thing down and give us the bites that are going to show us why you are the person that is going to lead all leaders on this other side of the pandemic. So I'm going to be quiet.
Well, I'm going to start with a question. I'm going to take it here for just a few minutes. To me, it's either to dream or not to dream. That is the question. And what I'm looking at when I go through that, Margot, I look at the power of imagination and how it can take us anywhere where we want to go, regardless of our current circumstances. I'm the daughter of Mexican-American immigrants who moved frequently from city to city in search of work. As a child, I couldn't even imagine in the midst of such chaos and adversity that we lived in daily, what life would be like. At the age of 5, I was already daydreaming to become a teacher. And I remember seeing this amazing teacher on TV, and I'm like, I want to be like her. And I remember seeing her in front of the little children. And yet growing up, my elementary school teachers would tell me, you're never going to make it. I remember hearing that I was a pest, and I was well on my way to make those predictions a reality, growing up in extreme circumstances, all these things that happened in my life. I knew one thing for certain. Either I had a choice when I decided to run away. I was 12 years old for the first time that I ran away. And I had a choice. Do I live or do I die? And I looked at my grandmother in her eyes and I said, Grandma, you know they're going to kill me. And her response was, I know. And I'm like, I need you to help me. And it was through the courage of my 16-year-old uncle that he helped me escape. Mm-hmm. And so as I was moving forward, I stayed with my grandparents. My parents left town. They looked for me 2 days and they left town. And here I was with my grandparents. And now I had 2 uncles that were over the age of 21. They were in their mid-20s and they were egging us on, getting us drunk, having us smoke and ditch and all of the above. Like everything that I thought I had escaped, here I was in a different form. Fast forwarding, things happened that should have never happened in those situations. I ended up getting raped in that process. I was 14 by that time. Now I'm being sent home to my parents because things were a bit out of control with the ditching and things that were happening. And I said, there's no way. There's no way. If they didn't kill me the first time, they will definitely kill me the second time. So there isn't going to be a second time. I had been dating an older person than me. He was 22 years old. And I ran away from home with him. I took off with him, and you would guess it. Now I'm in a different city. Didn't know I was walking into an abusive, controlling relationship. And 2 weeks later, I end up pregnant. So much to handle, so much to deal with. By the time I was 15 years old, I was desperate for an escape. I knew being a Latina, teenage mother, family didn't support her, menial jobs and labor, 6th grade education. My son didn't stand a chance in this world. And I knew that I had to go out and create something for him. That dream was still there. It was dim. And I just turned that light back on. I remember knocking on the community college's door and saying, I am ready to go to school. The only way, Margaret, that I can go to school is to divorce my parents. At the age of 15, I emancipated myself legally from my parents so that I can start university. That was my track. I was accepted. There was still a process. You still had to wait until you were 16 years old to be accepted. I got accepted, started at 17, and life was, to me, it was amazing. I did what I had to do, and I did what I thought was important. Going to bed at midnight, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, packing his father's lunch, even though here I am in a relationship that I didn't want to be in because I had been leaving that relationship since I was 15. And he would find me and bring me back, find me, bring threats, bring me back. You're never going to make it. I'm going to take your child away from you. Your family doesn't support you. On my grandparents' porch, telling me your family doesn't even care and they don't even support you. And to some degree, Margot, they were right. He was right. And I had to just continue to believe that, yes, I can do it. And someday I'm going to do it. So in getting up really early in the morning, getting up at 3, making his lunch, getting everything ready for the day. By 4 a.m., 4:15 in the morning, I'm walking down the street, if you can only imagine, with this big old backpack, diaper bag, and a 2-year-old in my arms, walking through the snow, trekking through the snow to go catch a bus, catch 2 buses, walk down the street, drop off my son, make almost the exact trek back to the same city within a couple of miles, go to school and make it there by 8 a.m. If I was lucky, I was there at 7:45, 8 o'clock, walking across the campus, eating my cold burrito while I walked because there was no time to sit down and eat. And then make that trek all over again in the evening to go pick up my son. And the irony was that my son's father had a car parked outside.
Oh my goodness.
I just wasn't worthy enough to use the car. And it was an uphill, what seemed to me like a a battle uphill both ways. And I just knew one thing for certain. It's like, either if I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it. It's going to be me. It's going to be up to me. It's not up to anyone. No one can come and rescue me. I must rescue myself, because people didn't believe in me. They weren't even there. I remember when I left, finally escaped, I had $500 in my pocket, Margo. I had sold my car for $500. I was 19 years old. And one day I just mustered up the courage, walked out. I dropped him off at work, left everything there, his check, his keys, his car, his everything. And I walked away to be homeless with my 4-year-old. And in moving forward, it's like, okay, you just do what you must do. Like, I had requested, I made a demand of one of my friends and said, you give me a job. Like, either way, I'm leaving. I'm going to clean houses. And I ended up cleaning houses with her. I was working at a daycare, and in exchange for an apartment, 130 hours a month. And then I would go clean houses so that we would have food and things that we needed. And then school started. And then I finally got an apartment, which would seem to be amazing. And it was a 2-year program, transitional housing. And we are sleeping on the floor, my son and I'd get up early in the morning and just do it all over again, like day after day after day. And I'm like, so grateful. Within a short period of time, there was a donor who decided to donate 2 twin beds. And I was so grateful for having the opportunity to sleep on a bed. Okay, no car, still on the bus, still cleaning houses, now working at the university, mentoring students to get into and through school. Some of them were old enough to be my parents. Some of them had graduated from high school. I hadn't. Some of them had second degrees, whatever it was. I was still helping them figure out the system and get through school. I graduated with my students, which was phenomenal. And I kept on moving and trekking and designing programs and helping and advocating and doing whatever it took to be successful. I got trained into how to facilitate courses. I got trained on teaching parents. My commitment was to teach parents and to share, you know what, there's an impact. I remember hearing my mom saying, you should be with your son's father, taking care of him and taking care of your son. And I'm like, no way. There's no reason to argue with anyone. My grandfather had the saying, when there's two people arguing, one of them is wrong, essentially, something's going on. And, why make it two crazy people arguing? Just let it be. So I didn't argue. I was just like, I heard the comments, and inside of me, I would say, just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. Do whatever it takes. And it wasn't an easy track. There was a lot of setbacks along the way. What I can say is that it was all well worth it. I earned my certificate. I graduated with my students one time. My family didn't even show up. The next year, I graduated again. My family didn't show up. In the next 2 years, I graduated again. I had my bachelor's now in international business. I didn't show up. What was the point? By the time I had earned a dual MBA in international business and marketing, I showed up. I'm like, I own this. Because I remember that moment of, I wanted to have a dual degree. Here I was working 70 hours a week, and it was a long shot. I had like the love of my life. That relationship went downhill. And here I was like devastated and going back to school. I wanted to go to law school and I wanted to do all these things, all these dreams. And then I said, okay, I've got to get back into school. And I asked my son one day, I said, son, I have just been accepted into a master's program. He's like, okay, mom, he's 14 years old at the time. I said, but I want 2 degrees. I want a dual MBA. And I'm explaining all these things. And he's like, well, mom, what is it that you want? I said, well, they're giving me 6 years to complete this program. I know I can complete it in 2. And he looks at me once again, says, what do you want? This is what I want. Then do it, mom. What does it mean? There's going to be sacrifices in time. Well, let me say, Margot, I was working 70 hours a week, traveling, training all over the state, getting home at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning to only be heading out at 7:30 in the morning to drop him off on a Friday. Right. And my friends were pitching in. I was going to school, not full time. I wasn't even allowed to go full time. I was only allowed to go up to 3/4 time. I was going to school double time to university. I was falling asleep with my books. And I was just like, I was unstoppable. And I had this dream. I'm like, someday I'm going to build a home from the ground up for my son. Lend me a hammer, give me a hammer, and watch me build the platform where America can thrive. Watch me build a home for my son to be proud of. And that was my thing. So now we were building a home on top of that. Okay, if you could only imagine. So now I'd get home at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, pull the full day, teach at night, get home at 10 o'clock at night, to be on the road at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning for a 1-hour trek. Wow. To go visit the home and participate in that process and to teach him. I wanted to teach him, you can do anything and everything that you desire as long as you're willing to put forth the effort. And the journey may not be easy, and you must be grateful. Remember where you came from. Yes. Don't stay there.
Yes.
Just remember where you came from and have compassion and empathy and appreciate the journey, because it is a journey. And I'm proud to say that I became a serial entrepreneur. This is my 3rd business. Wow. I have dedicated my life to helping people. Today, and I'm going to backtrack in just a moment. Today, my son's 30 years old. His name's Victor. Oh. I have a 6-year-old grandson. His name's Emilio. And he's like, I just love watching him to say like grandma. And I'm like, grandson, he's amazing. And I'm going to backtrack for just a moment. There was a moment in time, I was 33 years old and on top of the world. And by comparison to where I've come from, I was an empty nester. I had the car, the house, the kid, the education, the business, the life, the networks, more than what I could have ever dreamt of. You would have told this little girl she was going to be meeting ambassadors of country, and that someday that they would be requesting her appearance personally, I would have never even phantomed that. That was not in my capacity to be able to understand at that point. And then I wake up one morning, Margot, as I was turning 34 years old. I hadn't been feeling well for months, to only wake up and end up in the emergency room. I woke up, I was disoriented. I thought somebody had stabbed me in the head. It was pain. I couldn't stand up. I just simply got up to go to the bathroom, and I could not stand up. Ended up in the emergency room, fast track, days later, to discover that I had a brain tumor.
Oh my goodness. Gross.
So when I thought I had it all, okay, and I had already been through some very difficult things. At 25, I was in a head-on collision. I was told that by 30, I wouldn't walk. I was told that I'd be in a wheelchair. I was forbidden from having children, and I was forbidden from even carrying things. I couldn't even hold a backpack. 2 fractures in my vertebrae. And pain that was uncontrollable. I was seeing doctors 6 days a week, and it wasn't 7 because there was no doctors to see on Sundays.
Oh my.
Fast track with that, I had another touch with cancer right before I was 30. Now I was 34. I thought I had overcome that. And I'm like, okay, life is good. Now we're stable. 2 major incidents. Now here's the 3rd one. Like death is staring me in the face, and I have a decision to make. What do I do here now? And I knew every step of those 3 circumstances, I knew one thing for certain. If I can see my future, I can walk into my future. And I would write that one down for anyone who's listening. If I can see my future, I can walk into my future. As I remember standing in that emergency room with the doctor, and the doctor telling me, Rocio, you have a brain tumor. Like something's wrong. Something's majorly wrong. And she knew that there was something that I needed to get taken care of. And I looked at her and I'm like, I have a birthday party. I have 50 people coming over in 2 days. This was like Thursday morning. I had people coming over on Saturday. So he tells me, looks at me and says, cancel that party. And I looked at him and said, I can't cancel my party. My friends are coming in to celebrate. My friends were my family. They were there. They were always there. I hosted the party with help, pulled it through with friends. And I remember my friends asking me, like, Rocio, what are you going to do when they say that there's something wrong? I said, I'm going to live. I'm going to party before, during, and after. I'm going to enjoy my life and party. What I mean is that I'm going to celebrate my life. I'm going to celebrate every moment here now. I said, what do you want me to do? Sit down in a corner and cry? It's not an option.
Yeah.
At least not an option for me. The moment that I was diagnosed, the doctor walks in and says, picture's worth a million words. As he walks through the door, heads to his computer and looks at it and says, I said, okay, fine. He says, this is what it is. What are my options, doctor? I could either treat it like a business transaction, which I did, because every business issue has a solution. And I dealt with it then. I say that to say the next thing. Then I had to discover what my passion was. What is my passion? What would I commit if this is all I have to live? As I woke up that next morning from hearing that news and saying, this is my life, that I live intentionally, by intent. And I design it. And I get to be here now, whatever it looks like. I don't know what I have. As the doctor said, you can have a stroke and die any moment. I was 34. I said, okay, fine. How do I live here now? It's not the amount of time that I have to live. It is the time that what I do with the time that I have to live.
Yes.
As I was moving forward, I decided that I wanted to coach individuals, continue that journey that I had started when I was 19 years old, to help people discover their lives and what can you do? How do you tap into your fullest potential? How do you tap into your heart? How do you tap into your life? How do you do what makes your heart sing? And I went on an amazing journey. I sold my house. I moved downtown. Due to health reasons, I couldn't make that drive. I was being chauffeured for a couple of years. I would sit up on my meetings, do the work I needed to, and lay back down while I was being chauffeured back home. That was no way of living. I moved to San Diego. I was going through my own journey out there. And then I had to do the hokey pokey. I had to face everything I had repressed because it peeked its ugly head. And boy, was it ugly. There was the good, the bad, the ugly, the everything that came out, everything that I'm like, okay, I forgive, I do, I move on. And no, forget it. You hadn't even processed it. You cannot move on from what you have not acknowledged and processed and dealt with and felt with.
Yes.
And that's what I started to do. I started to connect with myself. I did the hokey pokey, and it wasn't like put your right arm in and take your right arm. It was more like bring your heart in and see what's there. Bring your life in and see what's there, and see what you can transform and transcend through and move beyond. And I discovered that in the midst of all the success, in the midst of all the accomplishments, in the midst of everything that had been going on in my life, that I didn't feel worthy of having it. That the one thing that I desired more in this world than anything else was my mother's love, which I never had. I was rejected as a child. I was abused severely. Physical connection and touch was not possible. And what I discovered on that journey was that her love was not mine to have. It wasn't. That I had to have me in love with me. And I had to build me. And part of that process, Margot, as I was going through it, I'm looking at, and I'm coaching, still coaching people. People are calling me and they're like, Rocio, I want you to coach me in your energy. And I'm like, no, how could these people be so successful and have everything I desire, which was amazing relationships, and I don't have them? How about I turn that spotlight on me? How about I do my own work? Because I hadn't done my work. I was extraordinary and competent, naturally competent at guiding people. I just hadn't guided myself emotionally. I hadn't guided myself at this level. Yes, educationally, business, and whatever I had. Yet emotionally, I hadn't dealt with those traumas. And those traumas came up. And so as I was moving through it, I said, okay, let me figure this out. I quit for 3.5 weeks coaching people. Yet I discovered that's what made my heart sing. So I came back to it. And I decided I immersed myself into what's called experiential learning and experiential leadership. And in that, to bring out the new version, the person that didn't have the hurt, the person that was excited to live, and the person that was proud. Yes, I have a dual MBA. Yes, I have degrees and certificates that cover an entire wall. Yes, I own the fact that I've spoken around the world. Yes, I do this. Yes, I do that. And building myself, as I was building myself back up, to say, and still in the process, I think that building ourselves, it's forever. It is not something that you do here now and then you're done with it. It's something that you do forever. And I remember walking around and just saying, as I was telling my clients, I'm like, okay, what is she missing? Okay, she didn't get the attention that she was feeling that she needed. How do I help her build it? And I developed this process of self-talk, where I even used it, where I was walking around and said, okay, Rocio, what didn't you hear? I didn't hear I was proud of you. I love you. You're amazing. We're whatever. And I would walk around and I would say, and I would look into the mirror and I would say to myself, hey, little girl, I love you. Hey, little girl, I'm so proud of you. Hey, little girl, I'm so happy you're here with us. Hey, little girl, this. Hey, little girl, that. And everything until that bucket became full. That cup was overflowing with joy and self-love. And it is a process, and it's a continual process. It's not something that you do once and that's it. Because sometimes when we've experienced so much trauma, things show up again, right? If we haven't fully dealt with it, it shows up. And for me, it's to continually, and I've developed processes for that. I have the mind shift game for that. I have Unstoppable for that. And we'll talk about this in a moment. Fast track into life today, I'm a global author, speaker, trainer. I help people guide them through their own amazing journey. And I find it that it's such an amazing privilege to have the honor to guide them through one of the most intimate, intense moments of their life that maybe they've never even shared with others. Here I am to have the privilege to do that here now.
That is amazing. I'm speechless. I was speechless when we first spoke, and to hear your life story again and the processes that you bring to your clients. This is not conversation that is usual, I must say. We always want to put things on the back burner. Do you find that most people don't want to take the deep dive look into those things that are those traumas? Is it just easier for us to not pay attention to them and forge on? Because on the surface, your story, your resolve, your resiliency, your grit, your gumption is just top notch. But then when it stopped you, you had enough courage. I heard you use the word courage to step back and take a look at what was it hadn't been done, what's not being said. That is how did you seek the help of a therapist to guide you into these tools, these modalities? I don't even know what to call it. It's remarkable work.
Most definitely. So here, it takes courage. It takes courage to lead yourself. It takes courage to look in the mirror and change what is inside of you, because we're perfect on the outside. We're beautiful.
Yeah.
Look in the mirror. We're all manicured, gorgeous, stunning. And it's the internal part of us that we don't see and what others don't see. And sometimes they sense it, right? It's a sense where we connect with somebody like, there's something going on with, Glenn. There's something going on with Madeline. There's something there. I don't know what it is. She doesn't seem authentic. Mm-hmm. that's the lack of authenticity when we feel like an imposter that we're carrying that. And I felt that. Did I seek people? Yes, I did. The first person that I connected with was around being raped, and I just couldn't deal with even being intimate with a partner. And I remember being with the therapist, and we're an amazing individual. We're going through this process. And at the very end, she's like, her ability to be able to help me wasn't there. She couldn't help me. The final thing, when I walked out that door, she said, I am just looking forward to seeing what you create, given where you come from and what you've done with your life. And I'm thinking, okay, I was expecting, like, let's schedule another session. I can help you. Let's figure this out. And then I had another trigger in 2008. I had another trigger where similar situation, with an attempted rape, and that triggered me, and I woke up a lot of things. And here I was again, yet again, having conversations with a therapist. I looked at my therapist and I said, you don't have the capacity to help me. If I can think above and beyond you, you cannot help me. And so that's where the experiential learning and leadership came, where I was going to conferences all over the country to learn from people. I ended up in Canada. I ended up here all over the West Coast area and all the way to the Midwest to attend places that had the experiential aspect of it, where I can heal from it. Because to me, traditional therapy, it works for some people, and for others, it doesn't. Now, I've had clients who tell me, Rocio, I don't know if you can help me. I've been working with a therapist for 25 years. And here's where I'm at. To me, you must transcend the experience, and which is what we do. What I developed after going through my own process was just that, to help people reconnect with themselves. As a matter of fact, we only coach for 1 year. If we cannot help you in one year, and it's a team effort. It's like going to the gym. I'm your personal trainer. You still must do the work. If you don't do the work, I can't help you. I cannot help you. And you're unwilling to help yourself. You must be willing to do your own work. And the only one that can do it is you. I can show you what it is. I can shine some light. I can help you look at your blind spots. I can help you look at your hurts. I can help you transcend your hurts. And you must be willing to let it go. And sometimes we hang on to it. As a matter of fact, I have an amazing individual in a foreign country, keep my clients private, who I was asking, like, what's stopping you? What are you fearing? The fear of being good enough. And we're talking about top level people that have helped companies earn 100+ million, 300 million. This is nothing to shy at. Mm-hmm. And they still have these fears that bring up that imposter syndrome, those triggers, places where that stops them. How do we take it and do our own work? Well, I developed a process, Myrna. I developed a process after coaching for 26 years, almost to the date, where I figured out that secret formula after going through my own process. What I've done with people is, when people sometimes, for instance, one of my clients who was a rock star, she was amazing, top in her community, top in her company, top in everything, just very lively, gets cancer. Next thing I know, she was battling cancer for over a year and a half. She had lost traction in her business, was on the verge of losing it all. She had to be rebuilding her business. Her children were misbehaving. She was on the verge of divorce and didn't know what to do. She came in like a limp noodle to one of our coaching sessions. We had a 2-hour coaching session. She looked like a limp noodle. And let me share with you, by the time that she walked out, she looked like Superwoman. Her body was erect. Her aliveness had returned. The magic and the possibility and the opportunity was all inside of her in that moment. And that's the beauty of it, where we have people telling us, like, Rocio, I've had more success in 10 months than what I had in the last 30 years.
Wow.
where we have individuals who are tapping into their fullest potential, who were investors and now are semi-retired in 9 months.
Wow.
Right? Because it's who we be. And I'm going to share it. It sounds a little interesting. It's who we be. It's who we're being in this moment that dictates the rest of my life. See, Margot, what I didn't share when I was going through all these issues with the brain tumor, 2014, I was sitting in front of my doctor and he was reading now my MRIs. And he looks at me and he says, okay, this is what it looks like. It's smaller than even when it was diagnosed. And I'm like, yes, doctor, because I took on the initiative. I started listening to music that was more positive, programming, dry brushing, alkalizing, exercising, eating healthy food, green eating, juicing, everything, all of the above. And I knew that it had an impact. And I was in a much happier place. And sometimes our families are very chaotic. And they cause us to get sick and we just don't know. Every time I'd come to Denver and I'd go back home, I was so stressed by the time I got there that I just wanted to go to the beach. There was just so much going on here and none of it was good. And that wasn't helping me in my own healing process to go through, like picking up my mother in the middle of the night because my father was drunk and irate at 2:00 in the morning, trying to figure that out. You know, wake up from your sleep to deal with that when you're going through your own health crisis. And in life, so what I discovered is how do we take this into our own hands? How do we create an extraordinary experience for ourselves and our family, our people, and anyone and everyone? And I created the mind shift game. How do we shift our mind? And I have my little box right here, if you can see it. Well, maybe not so much so, but on here, I'm in front of a green screen, so it's a little interesting. There it is, the mind shift game right there. And I developed a community. This is a leadership game that you guide yourself. This is the game that you must win because it's your game. You get to come back into alignment as we align with ourselves, with our true self, then everything happens from there, where I take courageous actions, where I do whatever it is that I'm doing will take me to a completely different level. And that to me is what excites me. We have a community. I do a meditation, custom meditation every Monday morning on a particular topic. And I'm going to read the topics to you that people get to go through. They get to take courageous action. They get to build their confidence. They get to expand their vision. They get to tap into their power and power that they've never thought that they can ever tap into powerfully and own it. Own it, because a lot of the time, I believe that 9 out of 10 people in my experience are unstoppable and they don't own it. How do we own that? And how do we elevate our energy to have what we desire? And in that, within those cards, within those categories right there, I'm going to read off a few things that are important to me in those cards. Here's some of the categories. I create, I move, I choose, I feel, I take, I use, I trust, I have, I love, I am, I know. And all of those things are very powerful in this deck of cards that I go through on a daily basis. I go through 3 of them. I listen to my meditations. I get myself aligned. I talk about gratitude and discuss all those things that get me into alignment as a human being. And then everything happens. Everything else happens as a result. It's like the game starts to play you and take you to a different level. The game starts to level you up to that next level. And it's beautiful. We have people right now that are playing the game online and they're just amazing. They're doing amazing things within the game. And that's powerful to us. That is so powerful for them to be able to touch, move, inspire. In 1 week, people have tapped into their courage and taken courageous actions where they wouldn't have done it. In 1 week, they have presented where they were fearful of presentations, what we hear about presentations. They'd rather be the person in the coffin than given the eulogy, right? In 1 week, a person building their confidence and saying, wow, I feel amazing. In 1 week, expanding that vision. In 1 week, and I'm talking about 1 week per category here, tapping into their power and saying, where did I lose my power? And how do I gain it? How specifically do I gain it? And that's my part as the coach and leader, to help them tap into that, because people are like, okay, I'm going to gain my power. So what? Okay, that's too specific. How specifically are you going to regain your power? What are the things that you will be doing here now to tap into that? And that is the magic of the game. That's the magic. And then they get to journal about it. They have a beautiful journal that every single day, the game is played in 8-week rounds. Every single day, they get to journal and score themselves. They go online and they score themselves. They're going through this amazing process, and they're just popping up like popcorn. They're supporting each other. See, success, like failure, has a formula. And I'm going to repeat that. Success, like failure, has a formula. We're either in, and we're always in a community, right? Yeah. We're either in a community that promotes success and growth and is supportive, or we're in a community that brings you down when you say, I'm going to do this. Oh, no, you can't do that. What do you think? You're missing, you're too young, you're too poor, you're the wrong color, wrong this, wrong, whatever it may be, as opposed to like, how can I support you? Right? There's a difference in night and day. I've been thinking about what makes people tick and what makes people successful. And I remember reading the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad after I've been thinking about this for years. And then I discovered, what is it about these two communities? Because I had two families. I had my chosen family and I had my actual family. And I remember when I was 21 years old that I walked into my counselor's office day after graduation, bawling. I was just like weeping like a child. And I'm like, Benita, no one in my family showed up. And I offered to pick them up. I offered to pick up my own mother. And she said no. And your father won't be there. I called my grandmother. Grandma, I'll pick you up. I won't be there. I'm like, nobody's going to be there. Like, all these important people in my life are not going to be there. And Benita looked at me and she said something that changed the course of my life over the last 26 years. And she was just amazing. She started coaching me when I first went into university. And in that moment, she looked at me and said, Rocio, here, you have to create your own family. Someday you have to create your own family and your own rituals. And I did. And I hand selected my family and I hand selected my rituals. And I created my own life right there. And here's something that's so interesting. So a number of years ago, I went back and I'm like, Benita, I want to get back to this institution. I had been knocking on that institution's doors for years. I was just so grateful for the opportunity to achieve my dream of becoming that teacher. And I remember a couple of years ago, I had my book out there and I was doing a presentation and so excited about that. And Benita comes out. She's like, I can't do this right now. She had my book there. She's like, there's this woman who drove literally for like 7 hours in the snow. She's leaving her abusive relationship. Her family doesn't support her. And I just told her, I don't know how you plan to do this. And I have like chills from head to toe right now from what she said afterwards. She goes, and I turned around and I saw your book on my desk. And she told this woman, I'm going to help you because one day this woman right here walked into this office And it just like, it brings me to tears to remember that moment. And we were filming testimonials. Okay, Margot, we were filming testimonials in that moment when she's like, no, I just have to tell you this, right? I'm like, that is the testimonial right there. That is it. And the power of who we choose to be. Like, we could either look at the things that we don't have or create the things that we desire. I choose to create the life that I desire. I choose to create it in every moment. And I remember going back to the doctor, because I never did finish that up. So the doctor, I'm in his office, and he's like, the tumor is smaller than what it was in the beginning from when it was diagnosed. And I'm like, yes, doctor, I'm so excited. And he goes, no, it's just going to get worse. And at that moment, Margot, I looked at him and I said, your capacity to be able to help me has expired. And not help me. Because if you can't hold belief in me and what is possible and probable, you're not God, okay, first and foremost, right? And if you can't hold that capacity to think about me, to help me see a new future, you can't help me. And just like when I was in that car accident that the doctor said, you're going to be in a wheelchair by the time 30, I was 25 and a half. That meant that in less than 4.5 years, I would be in a wheelchair, according to him. And I said, no, I have the capacity to transform my life as long as I can control it. Right? If I can control, I know that the mind has the ability to be able to heal the body. I know that instinctually. We all do. What happens when we cut ourselves? Immediately, there's the blood starts coagulating, right? There's specific things that start happening in the body where the body attempts to heal itself. And we must give it what it needs. One of the major things that I've discovered in my career is that whatever it is that we think, we become. Whatever it is that we think we become. And there's something called the observer theory, right? Where if a person is observing, they have positive thoughts, those cells are going to change positively.
I heard that.
And if that person thinks about it negatively, that's going to change negatively. Okay, let me tell you, it took me 9 years to heal my back to the degree. And I'm telling you, doctors 6 days a week, traction every single day. It was painful, headaches galore. You know what? I'm right here right now.
Yes.
Pain-free. Pain-free. I skydive. I jump out of buildings. I am an extreme sport junkie, and I love it. I love it for the breakthroughs that it gives me. I've walked on fire. I've walked on glass. I have eaten fire. I love to challenge myself to what is possible and probable. And I believe that each and every one of us has the capacity to be able to do that.
Rocio Perez, I am looking at the time. You have taken us on a journey where we regain our power. I'm thinking of what you are offering people from your book, Unstoppable: 7 Steps to Becoming a More Intentional Leader. As I listen to you, I believe that you can lead people to regain their confidence, their presence, be in the, how are you showing up? What does your presence say about you? Realizing your personal power. It's obvious you take a person on that deep dive look at your personal power, finding and developing your own way, your own authenticity, discovering and, yes, eliminating those blind spots. Oh, my eyes almost glazed over when I heard that part. Self-awareness and maximizing your overall impact. This is what you've put into one book. And this is what I've heard snippets of all of this in today's conversation. How do people get in contact with you? How do they become a part of the Mind Shift Games? I heard you say this happens for people in 1 week. This has happened for a person in 1 week. And I know everybody's different, but you are giving people tangible results that are not 30, 40 years or maybe on down the road. So can you tell people, how do they get in contact with you? work with you?
Thank you. And they can reach me through admin@inventivaconsulting.com. You can reach me through events@inventivaconsulting.com. So you can reach me through the Mindshift game at inventivaconsulting.com. You can call me directly at 303-587-8367. That's 303-587-8367. You can find me online as well through our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find me in all of those different platforms. And most importantly, call me.
Gotcha. You've made yourself available to the world, not only as a speaker, but as a healer, as a true leader who knows how to develop leaders. And just one final question I have for you. We must do this work, which on whatever level we have to work from, but we must do this work so that we can be the leaders that we're supposed to be. You agree with that? There are no shortcuts.
There are no shortcuts, Margot, no shortcuts for any one of us, even for me, who had been coaching for almost 17 years before I did my own work. There are no shortcuts. It is time to look in the mirror and to look inside and tap into what's possible and muster up that courage, because I promise you, what is on the other end of it, on the other side, when we transcend, is far more magical than what we could have ever imagined. People are living extraordinary lives. I've had people who say, Rocio, I was working with a therapist for 6 or 7 years. Even the therapist said, what happened to you? And we do intensive 1 and 2 day coaching sessions. He had attended one of those and his life was completely different because of that.
My goodness. All right. I tell you, we could go on and on. I knew this was going to be a deep dive conversation because of the quality of your life, the backstory, the story that everybody's not aware of. I knew it'd be a deep dive. So thank you so much for your time, your transparency. You are indeed a global healer. That's the way I see it. The things that are happening, that happen to you, are happening to people globally. So the mind shift game is open for the whole world to become a part of, so that we can all become global citizens, healthy global citizens and leaders. So I thank you. It's been a real eye-opener. I thank you so very much. As always, it's hard for me to close out these episodes. I mean, so meaty. We usually go for 30 minutes, but you had to hear this total story, the story, the results, the event and the action. So thank you for hanging in there. I trust that you'll get in contact with Rocio Perez and you will never be the same. I'm Margot Levette, her business, her voice, her conversation. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. All right. Right here, all the major channels. Bye-bye now. I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.